Welcome, future educators. Let's just jump right into this explainer. Today, we're going to figure out how to master Competency 003F. So the goal here is to make sure you're totally ready for your certification exam, but honestly, more importantly, that you are ready for day one in your very own classroom. You know, as a teacher, you wear a ton of hats, but maybe the most fundamental one is just being the ultimate guardian of your students' well-being while they're in your care.
So why should you care? Well, imagine stepping into your room on the very first day of school. You're looking out at 25 eager faces. You've got your lesson plans meticulously prepped, the bulletin boards look absolutely perfect, and your energy is super high. But here's the really critical question. How do you make sure they not only learn the curriculum, but actually stay safe in a world that is just full of unexpected variables? It's a heavy responsibility for sure, but it is one you can absolutely master once you have the right framework.
And this kind of brings us to what we like to call the unpredictable classroom. Because, safety doesn't just mean dealing with massive school-wide emergencies. Actually, simple slips and trips are the leading cause of school-based injuries. It all starts by recognizing that, say, a spilled water bottle over by the art station or a heavy backpack left right in the middle of the aisle, that's not just a mess. That's a classroom hazard that needs to be addressed immediately to keep order and safety. Your ability to catch these small things is exactly what prevents the big things from happening.
So in today's explainer, consider me your mentor. We're going to walk through a real scenario, deconstruct the exam language, put safety into action, do a little reflection, and wrap up with some key takeaways. Basically, we're taking you from spotting a simple trip hazard all the way to confidently teaching real safety protocols. All right, let's dive into our first section and really look at the exact standard we're tackling today. So here is descriptor F, straight from your exam standards. It talks about selecting and using instructional strategies to teach safety. What this actually means in plain English is that as a beginning teacher, you have to know how to teach practical safety skills that prevent injuries and prep your kids for emergencies. You aren't just reacting to things when they happen, you're actively choosing activities to teach these principles. You're literally empowering your students to be active participants in their own safety. Moving on, let's deconstruct this a bit. To really get this, we need to unpack some of that academic language you're definitely going to see on your exam. First up, we have hazard. Notice how simple but profound this is, anything that has the potential to cause harm. Think back to that stray backpack in the aisle we just talked about. It seems totally innocent, right? But it has the potential to cause a physical trip and fall. Teaching your students to spot these hazards themselves is the very first step in building a safe environment. And once a hazard is spotted, you move right into accident prevention. These are the proactive actions you take to reduce the likelihood of injury. This is where you, the teacher, step in. You don't just wait for a kid to trip over that backpack. You take action to stop the injury before it even happens. You teach them to push their chairs in and store their bags where they belong. Now, to make that prevention consistent every single day, you establish a safety procedure. That's a reliable, step-by-step process designed to protect everyone. A procedure just takes all the guesswork out of it, whether it's how we line up for recess, how we carry sharp scissors, or how we wash up after a messy science experiment. These procedures are literally the bedrock of your classroom management. And by constantly practicing those procedures, you are actively building preparedness. That means your students are ready to respond appropriately if an emergency does happen. So when the fire alarm blares, there's no panic. There's just a calm, learned, automatic response. You're making sure they are completely ready to handle the unexpected smoothly. Because let's be real, despite our absolute best prevention efforts, an emergency can still occur. This is a situation that requires immediate action to protect health or safety. The hazard has escalated and time is suddenly of the essence. In those critical moments following an emergency, that's where first aid comes into play. This is the basic care you provide before the professional medical help can arrive on the scene. As a teacher, knowing basic first aid procedures and knowing exactly who to call and when is just an absolutely vital part of your toolkit. Now, here is a really crucial distinction: prevention focus versus emergency response. As your instructional coach today, I really want to emphasize that a core principle of this competency is that teaching accident prevention comes long before emergency response. Yes, we absolutely need to know what to do in an emergency, but our main job is to create a culture of preparedness that prevents the emergency from happening in the first place. All right, let's look at how we apply this safety in action. What does this actually look like when you're teaching your own students? Let's take a concrete example right from the source material. Imagine a real third-grade classroom where the teacher is running a safety unit. The flow might look exactly like this. Step 1, students identify hazards at home, which is great because it makes it relatable to their daily lives. Step 2, they move into the classroom and practice concrete fire safety procedures. And then finally, Step 3, they learn the critical skill of when and how to call emergency services. Notice how this unit uses specific instructional activities to teach safety? That perfectly aligns with descriptor F.
So let's take a moment to reflect on your practice. Think about your role as the lead decision maker in that room. I really want you to ponder this. What would you do in a high-stress situation, and how might diverse students respond to drills? Because a fire drill is not experienced the exact same way by every single child. Think about how your unique students might react during a really loud, disruptive event, and what instructional decisions you need to make beforehand to support every single learner. How do you make sure the drill is safe and understandable for everyone?
And keep in mind, your influence doesn't just stop at the classroom door. The standards explicitly say students should learn to identify hazards and make safe choices across multiple contexts, so at school, at home, and out in the community. You are guiding them to extend that responsible behavior to their own neighborhoods and living rooms. You're really teaching life skills here, not just school skills.
Okay, let's wrap things up with some key takeaways for success. We need to lock in these core concepts for your exam and your future career. When you finally sit down to take that certification exam, remember these golden rules. First, safety instruction has got to be practical and age appropriate. You're obviously not going to teach third graders the same way you teach high school seniors. Second, always prioritize prevention. Prevention is always emphasized before emergency response. And third, make sure you explicitly teach the procedures for common emergencies.
As we finish up this explainer, I really want to leave you with this recurring thought. Always be asking yourself, what will this look like when I am teaching my own students? How are you going to transform these textbook definitions of hazards and procedures into a living, breathing culture of safety in your room? Because at the end of the day, you are the architect of your classroom safety. By mastering Competency 003F, you're not just checking a box to pass a test, you're building the foundation of trust that allows actual, real learning to take place. So go out there and build an incredible, safe classroom. Which leaves me with one final question for you to think about. When that first bell rings, what is the very first safety routine you're going to teach your new students?